I'd like to give a little talk about this body, sex and money issues. I've made a handout which I will give you later, and I was reading it this morning, and I have to say it's one of the best things I've ever written.
I'm saying it, Douglas.
That's ego.
Where's
ego?
No, they're totally neutral observational. Or as Mariana would say, it's an awareness.
Don't worry, we'll critique it later.
Yeah, you can.
Film or otherwise. Yeah.
But so I thought, I don't think I can improve on it, so I think I'm actually going to read it and maybe expand on some of the aspects. And please, comment and ask questions as we go through it, because I'd like to be involved, the involvement of it. But what I also feel is that on this, it's on both sides, covers really all the basic core teachings of the Course in Miracles, just on these 2 pages. So why do the body, sex and money give us so much trouble? To understand this, we first go to the ontological reason described in the Course in Miracles. Does anyone not know what ontological means? It's kind of the core, original reason, something like that. Now we've already said this probably twice this weekend, but I'll say it again. The Course in Miracles tells us that the tiny mad idea where we chose to experience ourselves as separate, unique individuals, we imagined pushing God away and experienced ourselves as self-created rather than God-created. This is the whole idea. A what if? Thus arose the powerful belief in me or you. It's either God created me or I created me. It's me or you. And separate interests. Right? God says it's all about love. I say it's all about uniqueness and specialness. So this is the basis of the ego script. Me or you and separate interests. A part of the split mind, the ego, created a myth that this choice of separation, was a sin. So God extended into the Son of God, and the Son of God had this tiny dream idea, what if we go off and play on our own? But in this split mind, it said, I pushed God away and deemed it a sin. So we have deemed this separation a sin. The original sin. This sin, of course, is followed by guilt, because if you've committed a crime, a sin, then you're guilty. And then comes the fear that God will rise up from where we pushed him and punish us. So this is the original sin, guilt and fear, the core of all the Course in Miracles teachings and the core of the ego script. The ego then becomes our God and the real God our enemy. So we fear God. You know the expression, in the fear of God, Christian term. So we've made this all up. It's a myth. Like the Course says, this hasn't really happened. We're just dreaming that it's happened. But this belief in sin, guilt and fear is so abhorrent, so difficult for us to experience that we'll do anything not to experience it. So we make up a world of bodies. We literally, not figuratively, but literally dream of a universe, of a world. Quantum physics is proving that we can do that. There is no matter without an observer. So we are one observer creating a screen in the mind, like in the Matrix, we're creating a world. So To avoid this terrible experience of sin, guilt and fear, we make up a world where we can hide from this terrible guilt. Then the final step is we suppress this guilt and project it away from ourselves out there, like we've said many times. You're the bad guys, I'm the innocent victim. This is the core of the ego script. And if you look at all the newspapers, the history, the world, animals, plants, everything in the world is doing this. It's me or you, separate interests. I saw a wonderful cartoon where you see the roots of two trees fighting each other for the available nutrients. So it's the same in the animal world, vegetable world, and the human world. It's all the same. It's all me or you. Everyone fighting to prove that you exist. Now everyone out there becomes the bad guy and the cause of all our pain and misery, and we become the innocent victims. I see sin in you, not in me. So the ego's prime objective is to never look at the sin and guilt, because it's so unbearable. Everything we do, everything the ego does, or everything our small selves does, is an attempt to keep my individuality but get rid of the sin. That's what all rules are about. So I see sin in you and not in me. This is actually how the world operates. It sounds not so nice, but if you look, you see that it's operating everywhere. I mean, I pick up an English newspaper because I can understand English, so I don't pick up Danish newspapers because I can't read it. And it's like, oh, it's this on every page. I see sin in you. Everyone is looking for the bad guy, because when you found the bad guy, you can relax for a moment.
Why? Because it's not you.
Yeah, because it's not you. Yeah. So it's like when you found the mass murderer in wherever it was, France or something. We all gathered together. Hey, we found the bad guy. We kind of join in our projection onto the bad guy, and this is what the ego's trying to do all the time.
That's amazing. But there is almost practically a moment when we go, it might have been us.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sounds completely bonkers, but it's almost like, until he's caught, was it actually me?
Yeah. So, but this whole script is made up to keep us mindless. It's all made up to keep us out there and never get back to look in the mind of the one problem that we had, which was to choose separation in the first place. To choose the what-if, tiny mad idea in the first place. So the whole script is made up to keep us mindless and prevent us getting back to that part of the mind that chose separation in the first place and choose again. See, the ego script is very, very clever, because if we choose again and awaken, the ego dies. That part of our mind that we had made so special dies. Our existence here is defined by the body and our personality, our small self. And the underlying content of sin, guilt and fear is buried. We've suppressed it literally into the cellular structure. I know when I massage, particularly these muscles around here, how much anger is seated in these muscles, for example. We've pushed it very deep. You know this from your work too. I am not aware, this is a quote I think, I'm not aware I'm a child of sin, guilt and fear. I think I'm a child of my parents, a union of a sperm and an egg. That's who I think I am. Or DNA. The body, sex and money have great value as a defense against this truth. Keep us totally distracted from ever looking at our minds. And that's the purpose of the world, to keep us distracted. The ego's purpose, at least. As a defense against this truth, and are three of our greatest distractions. They are very interpersonal and are a great setup to give us endless problems. The ego loves problems. to keep us mindless. It's a setup. However, in truth, there's only one problem, and that's the original choice for separation. So we've been duped by our ego teacher, collective ego mind, that we made, right, but we're listening to it, and it will give us all these problems. We love these problems, even though we say we hate them. We're looking for them everywhere. So, I've put sex and body together because, well, that's just how I've done it. Now, sex is the way we create life, we think. Making another body is a way of extending ourselves and thus confirming we are self-created. Remember that God is always extending, and so is the Son of God, of which we are a part. And the Son of God is given all the same creative powers as God, we're told. So this is why we have created an infinitely clever ego thought system. And world, infinitely complex. The only difference between God and the Son of God is that the God is our Father and we are the Son. That's the only difference. We have the same creative abilities. That's what the Course says. So, we also want to extend ourselves. The ego wants to extend itself to be more of what it is. The ego always wants more. So making another body is a way of extending ourselves and thus confirming that we're self-created and not God-created. This the ego equates with sin. The body is therefore a synonym for sin. This is really hard to get. Very act of being a body to the ego is a synonym for sin. Remember, when we're born, we hurt our mother, and we hurt ourselves as we're coming out. This is our first sin in this body, and it's set up deliberately so that we have this experience right at birth to affirm that we're a sinner. It's already in the mind, but we're stamping it into the body right at birth. So this the ego equates with sin. The body is therefore a synonym for sin. Unconsciously we are re-experiencing the original split where we go off and create on our own. Just being in a body, breathing, etc. is a symbol deep down of the guilt of pushing God away. This is the effect of pushing God away. So now we're getting on to sex. The problems around sex have nothing to do with sexual behavior. We're always trying to correct each other's behavior, especially children, but everything in the world, even in prisons, is all about changing the behavior. That's not where the problem is. It's the content, the underlying thought that we are sinners is the problem. It's the content in the mind, not the form of the body. This is one of the key principles of the Course, is that we mix levels. We've been trying to change the effect and hardly ever the cause. If anyone's going to sleep,
No.
try. You look a little sleepy there, James.
James is gone.
A little
bit. Try putting one hand here and one hand here and taking 3 deep breaths.
I'm awake now.
You're awake? Oh. Because this is going right to the very core of the stuff, so it's not surprising that you will have a lot of resistance to what I was saying, maybe, but also very sleepy. So the Course talks a lot about form and content, which is what we were also saying about when you're being right. You can be right about something, but with a content of humbleness, not being attached to being right. The form is being right, and you are right, probably, but the content is an unattached, neutral feeling. We've also made sex very pleasurable and desirable, partly to propagate the species. Again, the ego always wants more, to keep extending itself. But partly as a wonderful distraction. Sex is also a symbol of specialness and of the love-hate in relationships. And we were talking about yesterday about special relationships and holy relationships. And that all relationships start as special. Oh, I found the one and only. That specialness. And sex is a symbol for this. We are so identified as a body that if we are rejected sexually, we can feel that we personally are rejected. So we equate ourselves with our body. Rejected, worthless, and not loved. And that's certainly been my experience. If a woman wouldn't have sex with me, I felt totally rejected as a person. We confuse levels, mixing cause and effect, when we spiritualize sex and make it holy or unholy. See, sex is about behavior. You can't spiritualize or make behavior holy, because it's mixing levels. Everything we do here, almost, or everything the ego does, is mixing levels. That's why it's so important for us to get this thing about form and content. It doesn't matter what we do, it's the content that's important. Sex makes the body feel very real, and that's the ego's purpose. It's a setup. We've set up the body to have so much pleasure and so much desire as a huge distraction to keep us from going on. The ultimate distraction from going on. Sex, I think, is almost at the peak of the ego's arsenal. We make sex very special, and we generally only have sex with one other. This reinforces separation and specialness. This is a quote, "Minds are joined, bodies cannot." You can have two bodies together, but the minds can be totally in different places. Sex is no more of a joining than anything else. Sex is nothing and neutral. It's our beliefs and thoughts around sex that make it not neutral. Sex and the body are a solution to the ego's problem. See, the ego is afraid that it will be undone and therefore disappear. So it wants something and is always looking for something to keep itself real. So sex and the body are the solution to the ego's problem by making it all real and keeping us mindless. However, it creates a host of other problems. And the ego loves that. That's its plan. So the ego is looking for things to hook itself onto so that we have a lot of problems, and the body and sex are wonderful hooks. Look how many fights go on, and how many wars go on around sex and the body. Rules about sex are set up at different times and different places. We have totally different rules about sex in some countries. Some countries you can have multiple wives, other countries it's the worst thing in the world, and so on and so forth. Some people say you can have many partners, or you can have sex in marriage, and many people don't. The thoughts and feelings and actions we have around sex are the same as around anything else. Sex is just a great symbol for us to hook all our blame and judgment onto. We think we raped God, and so we rape each other, metaphorically and literally. We always do to each other what we think we did deep down, we did to God. Hence the guilt.
Might need a little longer with this one.
We've been hooked on behaviour. That's not where the problem is. The problem is in the mind. Our behaviour comes from what we think, not the other way around. Any comments or questions?
Yes. Sorry. If separation is making us feel so guilty, or is the driver of this huge setup for guilt,
Yeah.
surely a dream, just to create a dream, just to create a dream in itself is not, is that it's something that one can wake up from a dream. People do, we do wake up from dreams. It's not permanent. So why so much guilt on something that isn't permanent?
Good question. Why, James? It's a myth.
It's an experience. But I can't,
The way the Course describes this tiny mad idea is that we had this tiny mad idea and liked it. You notice how this sense of individuality, we love it and we hate it. Part of it, we know it makes us feel lonely, separate, miserable, but we do anything to keep it. You tell me why. You know, it's just something that the mind has chosen. Well, the Course calls it insane. We've had an insane, tidy mad idea. What would it be like?
I was wondering about that, that use of the word mad, would it?
And took it seriously.
Okay.
And took it seriously. And this is why, if we're going to awaken, we have to start laughing at our tiny mad idea. And the more we play with this, I mean, we've had some good laughs already, you know, and tease each other in again, we can tease if the content is loving. Doesn't, like this, my friend teased me for 20 minutes publicly at my birthday party of all the little rules, actually, that he had caught me having. One of them was I had to have things just in the right place, and things like that. And while he was talking for 20 minutes, he was always like just slightly adjusting things. It's very funny. So we need to laugh at all our rules gradually, one by one. So you want to hear about money?
Yes.
Well, the same principles apply to money.
Surprise.
Unconsciously, we are saying to God that you have something that I want, my individuality, and you won't give it to me, so I must take it from you. This is the myth that the Course gives us. It's just a way of looking at the separation. God won't give individuality. God only gives oneness. So we have to take our individuality, metaphorically, from God. This is the beginning of the ego dream of separate interest and the me or you principle again. It's the basis of the money issue. You notice that exactly the same principles as we had for the body and sex, and any other issues we have here. The me or you, separate interests, and the scarcity principle. The scarcity principle says that there is something lacking in me, or I lack something. When we have pushed our source away, the result is a sense of lack. I've cut off my supply of love. I've blocked my love. Of course I have this sense of lack, sense of separation, sense of loneliness. It's called the scarcity principle. It says there is something lacking in me, or I lack something. The ego says, if I don't have something, then you took it from me, and vice versa. This is the clever ego trick. We don't take responsibility for choosing separation. We say, you caused it. Again, finding the bad guy out there. So you took it from me. The body was made as an instrument of scarcity. The body is a setup. We have constant needs. We need oxygen, we need air, food, touch, etc., etc., etc. The body is the most needful instrument there is. It's a setup, guys. We made a world of scarcity. This is all ego, right? The ego script. We made a world of scarcity so we could feel deprived and then find someone else to blame. We actually want people to have more money than us. This allows us to clearly say, I've been unfairly treated. This is the ego. I'm the innocent victim. I've been unfairly treated. This confirms that my separate identity exists. There is a huge difference in how much money people have. The haves and the have-nots. Very few have a lot of money, and millions are almost starving in the world. So these three principles are playing out. One of the greatest symbols of inequality is money. And listen to this. We had to find something like money to make the ego script true. So we're looking for hooks. What better than money? Sex and the body. To make our sense of deprived, victim individuality true. Here's one for you, Charles. In nearly every business deal, we're trying to get what we want at the expense of the other. Again, ego. Money is nearly always for me or for mine. We bargain and give as little as we can for as much as we can get from the other. Even if you go shopping in a high street, we're all doing this. This is the same for money, sex, relationships, religion, politics, and God. We originally got what we wanted at God's expense. We think. God doesn't care. But we think we took it from God. We think money is the root of all evil. It is infused with guilt, sin, and fear, and therefore power. We have a special love-hate relationship with money, where we use money as a symbol of scarcity. We chose to have a little or a lot to show our parents, who didn't give us what we needed, how powerful we are.
Can you just explain that?
Yeah. We chose to have a little or a lot to show our parents, who didn't give us what we needed, how powerful we are. Like a fuck you. Like my parents were very rich, I'll say, well, fuck you, I'm going to be really poor. Or vice versa. Whichever way we
What
choose.
about if you come from a poor background and that's your horizon? So what's that proof? That's not doing anything.
No, so you could.
Or potentially.
Yeah, you could go either way. Ego always wants more of anything. This again is a way to prove that we exist as individuals. Poverty is a kind of bargain we make with God. I will pay for my sin of pushing God away with my crucifixion and suffering. Look at how many religions have used what do you call it?
Flagellation.
That's the word, thank you. It's very hard not to feel guilty if we have a lot of money. But rich and poor are two sides of the same coin. The rich feel guilty because they think they stole it, and the poor feel victimized by those they think stole it from them. So again,
So the rich feel what?
Yeah, the rich feel guilty because they think they stole it
Stole it.
from the poor.
Really?
This is all unconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the poor feel victimized by those they think stole it from them. Again, two sides of the same coin.
Sorry, the poor feel.
Poor feel victimized by those they think stole it from them.
Depends on what level you Sorry, I just want to say something. So you could say that the rich never feel guilty about anything, but on the level that the rich, we never feel guilty about, but on the level that you don't question why, what you need, there's a level of guilt.
And remember that we always are attempting, everything we do is an attempt not to feel this guilt. That's the ego script. Do not keep my individuality, get rid of the guilt. That's the whole ego dynamic. So we hardly ever feel it. And as we said in the rules thing yesterday, it's latent guilt. It shows up when someone breaks your rules. Or you break your own rules. Then you can see how guilty. And now, the other choice, the right-minded choice. There is another way. And as I said earlier, the Course uses the term, what is it for, all the way through. It's one of the questions we hardly ever ask in the world. And of course not, because we never want to look. Purpose is everything. What are the body, sex and money for? Well, we just talked about the ego purpose, but there is another way. Because of their inherent problems, they can also be used as excellent classrooms. Remember, we have pushed everything out there on the screen, so that's where we have to start. We have to go out there onto my projections and use them as my classroom to come back to myself. We can change their purpose. We can change their purpose from separate interest to shared interests. We can rise above the battlefield and see that they are no different to anything else in this dream. So everything here has two purposes, one of two purposes. One, the ego's purpose, to establish that separation, the body, victimization, pain and pleasure are real, and to find someone out there to keep us something out there to keep us distracted and mindless. That's the ego's purpose of all of this. The right-minded purpose is to use everything as a classroom to get back to the mind so that we can choose again. It's not, and this is especially for you, Charles, about form and content. It's not about whether we have sex or don't have sex, or have money or don't have money. It's about which teacher we're doing it with. That's another way of saying it. The voice of the ego or the voice of the Holy Spirit in our right mind. But it's always about which of the two teachers we're listening to, that we choose to listen to. It's not about behavior. The body, sex and money are wonderful vehicles for helping us get in touch with the unconscious guilt in our minds. As we rise up the ladder, we may still want sex and money, but they won't be an issue. In other words, you'll be neutral about it, you won't be attached to it. And the intensity we might feel about them will eventually diminish. Like I've had a big attachment to money in my life. I've always been blessed with plenty of money, but I've still been very attached to it. And I notice it's getting less and less important. And very often I do workshops and I forget to ask people for the money. A Course in Miracles is neither for nor against money and sex. The only thing that matters is their purpose. All we need is the willingness to look gently at the thoughts and behavior around the body, sex and money without guilt and judgment, and then they will stop being an issue. So this last line is the forgiveness. We look gently at everything that we're thinking and doing without judgment. In fact, of course, synchrony works Simplicity works so well. I just picked up this book this morning. This is about the stages of our spiritual journey according to the Course. So listen to this. The key theme in A Course in Miracles, the heart of forgiveness, is looking at the ego. This means looking at the ego with the Holy Spirit or Jesus, which means looking at the ego without judgment. When it says, when you read the Course, it says look with the Holy Spirit, what that means is looking gently, without judgment. Thus we read, forgiveness is still and quietly does nothing. It merely looks, waits, and judges not. It's not about changing our patterns, our rules. You know, if you want to break an addiction, don't try and change it. Don't try and understand it. Don't try and fix it. Just look at it gently. Oops. There I go, doing that, or thinking that. When confronted with some form of the original error of separation, and we have many different forms, Jesus urges us in words that quite specifically tell us how to deal with the ego. Call it not sin. Invest it not with guilt, and above all, do not be afraid of it. And so we do not call the ego sinful. It's all, everything is belief, it is based on the belief in sin being real. Everything. We think separation is a sin. This means again that we do not attack it or change it, and certainly do not pretend it's not there. We mustn't deny our rules. We simply accept them because we have chosen them, which then allows us the opportunity to change our minds about them. Course in Miracles helps us to understand that we have chosen the ego to keep the love of God away. That's its purpose. We thus learn to look at our ego and not take it seriously, because in truth we cannot separate from God. Though in our delusional state we believe we have. And here's a quote. Into eternity where all is one, there crept a tiny mad idea, at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. The problem is that we did take the thought of separation seriously and forgot to laugh at the insignificance and inherent insanity of this fundamental ego belief. The Holy Spirit's response to the tiny mad idea is the loving and gentle smile that does absolutely nothing. And in the deepening this morning I said, just simply take on that gentle smile of Jesus, and does absolutely nothing. Which is why everyone has hated the Holy Spirit and anyone who represents him, like Jesus. When we do something about the ego or any of its manifestations, we have made it real. By struggling against it, trying to change it, all we do is strengthen its reality for us, which means we will never get rid of it. This laughter that Jesus speaks about, it should be noted, is not derisive or dismissive, nor it is even a physical experience of laughter, but could be. It's more of an expression of an inner laughter. So we must be just gently laughing at all our ego tricks, all our rules, whether it's to do with sex, money, or the body. They're all the same. It's all the same mistake.